is Abdul Rahman. I'm a lecturer at a public university in Kenya. I deliver lectures in computing and informatics. In our last lesson, we discussed about a user-defined type 1 function. Basically, we discussed that it takes no argument and no return data type. Today, we're going to discuss the user-defined type 2 function, and onto that journey, we are going to talk about the definition, the syntax, and the implementation. Let's start what is actually the user-defined type 2 function. Basically, the user-defined type 2 function involves also two things, and we have said our classification was based either they take argument or they take a return value. So with type 2, basically we are talking about one, it does not take an argument, just like type 1. So there will be no argument, and basically we are saying there is no argument, will have a void inside the opening and closing bracket. Number 2, it takes up a return data type. It takes up a return data type. And when you're talking about takes up a return data type, and we had seen in our last lesson, the data type basically they are void. These are primitive data type, char, int, float. So basically it cannot take the void data type, but it can take any one of these, either char, int, or float. So basically this is the definition of it. So let's move on to the second part of it. We want to see up the syntax. So the syntax, basically it has to have a return data type. So here the syntax, basically we are saying it is actually the data type, and then our function name, and then opening and closing bracket, and then basically we're having up our body and then closing bracket. So basically we are saying one of the data type it can never take up a void, it can take up a char or an int or a float. So basically we can say maybe our data type it is actually float, and then a function name. But here inside we don't have a return data type, so basically inside here it can take void or leave it the way it is. So basically that is the syntax of type 2. So after taking up the syntax of type 2, let's see how we are going to implement. So basically our implementation involves telling up a user to enter two numbers to get up the difference. So it has to enter two numbers to get up the interest. So basically we'll have a return data type, and this time we can have an integer, and our function will call it sub, and then it will take up a void. I'll take up what you call up a void argument, and then we can actually initialize our two integers, maybe int a, int b, and then to hold those two integers. Basically if you want to hold those particular two integers, you can have actually another variable called def, and diff, which means difference. And then basically we have to prompt up a user. So printf, we have to prompt them to enter two numbers to get the difference, to get up the difference. After entering, we have to use up a scanf to capture our two numbers, and basically our two numbers will be a and b. After capturing, we have to pass them into the variable diff. So diff will be a minus b, and then after that we have to print. So our printf will be %d and then we are printing up the diff. So basically this is how we can implement it. Now let's go back into our dev C++ and you can see how we can actually implement them. So we have our data type. So basically here we'll have our data type which will we'll call it up an int, and our function name will call it sub, but that particular sub does not take any argument, but it returns a particular data type. So, and then here we are going to define our function, that is the type 2 function. So you have our int sub, doesn't take up any argument, and then we are initializing our 3 variables which are going to hold up. So we have int a, b, and int diff, or diff, which is difference. So we are pausing now. We are pausing, telling up the user printf to enter 2 numbers to get up the difference. So we say enter 2 integer to get the difference. To get up the difference. So that will be the message to them, and then every statement must be terminated. Sorry about that. So you have terminated that particular statement, and then we're using up the scanf to capture the 2 numbers, and the format, it is actually to have a format specifier. So we'll have our 2 format specifier there, and then we are going to assign the 2 numbers, so to variable a and to variable b. So they'll be there in memory, variable a and variable b, and then assign the variable b to our variable called diff. So diff will be a minus b, and then we are going to print f. So we are going to do what? A printf. What are we supposed to do? We are printing f what? We are printing f the difference of 2 integer equals to, so we should have up our format specifier, which is %d, and then pass it onto our variable called diff, and then we are going to terminate. However, we have seen here that the syntax, each and every one of them should have an opening and an closing curly bracket. So here we should put up all this into our body of the function. So all this will come up into our body of the function. So that is basically our definition of a function. However, now here you cannot call our function as sub and then just run. It will give you an error. Let's try and see if it gives us an error. So we run here this particular program, and actually it gives us an error. And this particular error, why? Because it is expecting a return data type. So you have to initialize. You have to initialize a particular any variable, and here basically I can say int x. So and then I pass on my x to actually the variable which I'm talking about. So I say x equals to that particular function, and now we should have run with no problem. So let's run it. Okay, here also we are missing up the main method. So here you should have up our int main method. So here we'll have our int main method, and then it should run now, and it seems we've got a lot of problems again here, that our int sub method, we are actually terminated. We're not supposed to terminate here. So let's run now again for the last time. Voila, yes, it's give us. So we say enter two integers to get up a difference. So we are entering maybe 100, and then we are entering 46, and actually it gives up the difference. It is actually 54. So thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe into our next lesson. In our next lesson, we are going to talk about user-defined function part, user-defined function 3.